Look at all these microphones. I feel like I'm the president. My goodness. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today. Fort Wayne is continuing to move in the right direction. There's no doubt about that. We're having one announcement after another after another. I think that speaks volumes about our community. Well, we have another one today. Today we're announcing the selection of the model group to redevelop the landing in the heart of our city. And we're looking forward to the landing project as being one that we can all be proud of as it begins to unfold over the next several years. There is no question that this will be one of the most significant mixed-use developments of existing buildings in our city in decades. I have three other speakers with me today. Mac Parker, who is chairman of the Downtown Development Trust's Board of Directors, David Bennet from the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne, and Steve Smith from the Model Group. They'll be addressing you in that order. And rather than me going on and on, it's probably more important that they speak to you instead of me. So first I'd like to ask Mac Parker to come forward. Mac?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. There. Well, this is another great day in the history of the landing. There, I say another great day because the landing has been here almost back to the founding of Fort Wayne, and many great events has taken place on the landing during all that time. And let's hope this is another one of those great events there. You're in one of the most historic buildings on the landing. There, right to the west of this building was the Orbison Basin there, which was the port of Fort Wayne, and also was the turning point for the canal boats. And Kirk Moriarty tells me that upstairs they still have remnants of the hoist that used to pick the canal boats up and turn them around and so on. So this is one of the most historic buildings on the landing. The trust started out acquiring property on the landing about 3 years ago. We acquired 7 buildings and 2 parking lots. And let me tell you that buying property in downtown Fort Wayne that's 150 years old is not the easiest thing in the world, we found out there. But then last spring, we put out an RFQ to ask developers interested in the project. And we got a number of developers that came in, and we then narrowed it down to 3 developers. And so in August, we set out a request for proposals to these 3 developers there, and they all came back with very excellent proposals. They had unique ideas, financial plans, and the trust board then spent a whole day listening to their presentations in November. A committee of the trust and the trust board itself then spent a lot of time reviewing these proposals, had a number of additional meetings, and it all culminated in 5 of the trust boards, along with Kirk, going to Cincinnati on January the 21st. And again, spending an entire day there going through Over the Rhine. And if you ever have a chance to go to Cincinnati, this is a very interesting area. It's named Over the Rhine because of the German heritage. It's about a 20-block area of buildings very similar to this that date back almost 150 years. And we got to see many of those that had already been rehabbed, and then we saw a number of them before rehab. And to a great extent, we're very lucky. We only have 1 street. They have 20 blocks there. Anyway, after that, we had a meeting, the trust board. Well, we met in Cincinnati with 2 of the developers and toured the Over the Rhine area and saw a lot of their developments. And after that, after all of our due diligence, we came back, and about a week ago, the trust board made a unanimous decision to select the Model Group as our developer that we would like to proceed forward with. The Model has, we met while we're in Cincinnati with the Cincinnati Development Fund, which is a finance group down there, and they had done 25 projects with Over the Model in the Over the Rhine area. And they had a very outstanding things to say about them, and they have very high credentials, and so we feel that it's an excellent choice. we feel, and you'll hear more about that in a little while. One of the things that really impressed us is Steve Smith, who is the president of the model group, is moving his whole family in from out in the suburbs to downtown into the over the Rhine area there. I'd also like to take a little time and sincerely thank the two other developers. As I say, we had three that we went forward with. The two other developers, I'd like to commend them for not only outstanding presentations, but a thorough job all the way through. And I guess if there's anything I can say in satisfaction, it's that, as the mayor indicated, there's a lot of things happening in Fort Wayne. There's going to be a lot of other projects come down the line there. But we thank them for all their work and their time and effort that they put in there. All right, in addition, I'd like to briefly thank a number of other people there, and you might just hold your applause until the end, if you please, there. First of all, I see she's here, Sharon Fiesel and Heather Presley from the city helped us quite a bit in making financial decisions on projects. So they've had experience in projects of this type. Tom Neeser, I see back here, he's our attorney. He helped us not only in acquiring all these buildings, but giving us a good advice and also a lot of his own volunteer time. Greater Fort Wayne had loaned us two executives who supplied almost all the administrative functions for the trust. The trust doesn't have any employees, I might add. There, John Urbans, who is a former director of the trust and is now the treasurer, and Kirk Moriarty, who carried a lot of the work all the way through the whole project, set up all the meetings with developers, and looked after the property. 150-year-old property does take a bit of looking after over the time there. But I call a clerk, Mr. knows how to do it almost everything there. I mean, so, and also finally, not finally, but I'd like to also thank Dave Bennet, the Community Foundation, and Don Steininger. The trust is operated completely on borrowed funds. There we have no tax dollars. The trust has no tax dollars. And so our funds have been borrowed not only from the Community Foundation, but also from the Legacy Fund. And for that, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council. And finally, the board of the trust, who are all wholly volunteers. Luckily, they all have other jobs there because they spent many hours on not only buying these buildings, but also selecting the model group and working with the developers and so on. And a number of them are here. I'm going to read their names, and if they are here, they can hold up their hand. Ian Boyce, I know, is here somewhere. I'm not sure about Steve Brody. Mike Erler there. Julie Inskeep there. Dawn Roseman, I know, is here. And Carl I know is here. Carl Bandemer, Bob Walters, and Jim Cook there. And now you can give applause to all those people that did all the work. I have just one final word that, of course, the landing is a very historic project down here and a key part of not only what's happening now in Fort Wayne, but what we look forward to happening down on the river. And the trust is proud to work with the city and with the Community Foundation to be a part of all the great future that's now taking place in Fort Wayne. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. Now, Dave Bennet.
Well, I'll be brief. I want to congratulate everybody who was responsible for making sure this project goes forward. The Community Foundation had a small piece of it, and we're pleased to do that, to renovate this very historic structures along the landing that Mac told you about. Although Mac, there was an oversight. When I was in high school, there used to be a movie theater a couple doors down here, and Lou Ann Hoagland and I spent many dates at that movie theater over there, and she's been my wife for 33 years now, so I'm sure it's just a matter of time before you put a plaque up there, and I appreciate that. But no, I want to congratulate you, Mayor, on another wonderful announcement. Your staff has been great in putting this together. Eric Doden and Greater Fort Wayne, we were very pleased to be able to partner with you again on a wonderful project for downtown Fort Wayne. And Steve Smith and Model Group, we wish you nothing but the best of success with this project. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks, David. And now, as they say, the man of the hour, Steve Smith with the Model Group. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor and others mentioned, my name's Steve Smith. I'm the CEO of the Model Group, and the mission of our company is to positively transform communities. And so the first time I came here, I immediately felt at home. And I tell you why. The neighborhood that I cut my teeth in for years, as I think Mac mentioned, is a neighborhood called Over the Rhine. It's the largest collection of historic Italianate architecture in the country. And so we have about 20 blocks, 20 square blocks in Cincinnati that look exactly like the Landing. And so when I came here, I just immediately felt at home. I was like, wow, I've done this before, right? I mean, I know how this works. What is particularly special about the Landing, you almost have to get outside, especially if you're from a city. Like for me, I had to get outside of Cincinnati to figure out what was so special about our historic neighborhoods. And so if you've ever been to Charleston, for instance, if you get to other cities like Philadelphia, right, the old part of Philadelphia where they had Constitution Hall and those areas, you get to parts of Chicago and New York, there is something about historic architecture that people respond to. It makes people feel a certain way even if they don't know why. And it's because it's great architecture. If it looks good after about 150 years, there's a really good chance that whoever designed that got it right. And so for me to be able to restore and preserve these buildings, but not as artifacts to be looked at in a museum, but a place where people can still come and experience the space and also be a part of the Renaissance. I don't know if I'd call it a Renaissance, but Mr. Mayor, every time I come to Fort Wayne, and I catch up usually with Kirk, it's like a 20-minute download of here's all the new stuff that's happened. It's the energy in Fort Wayne is phenomenal, and so we are really honored to be a part of it and to really just sort of plug in to what's already happening. We're more used to sort of having to fight our way into a room and explain why this is such a good idea, but the civic leadership here is fantastic. I mean, we've had 2 different bus loads of people from Fort Wayne come down and do a tour of what we've done, and a number of meetings with the mayor and staff, and so the leadership is amazing. Just want to thank Mac and the members of the Fort Wayne Downtown Development Trust, and of course the Community Foundation. Greater Fort Wayne Inc., John Bonds, and Kirk is, I don't know if you haven't spent time with Kirk, get him outside of Fort Wayne. He is the biggest ambassador for this city of almost anyone that I've met. As was mentioned before, working with Sharon and folks at the city is just, in fact, we've already spent time together at some of the conferences trying to figure out how much money can we get to bring back to Fort Wayne with us. We also, speaking about civic engagement, and one of the marks of a city that I would want to live in or I would want to be engaged in is where are the young people, and do they care about the city, right? It used to be that we figured out where I want to work, and then you would move there, right? And so millennials and maybe Gen Ys, the deal is you find out where you want to live and you move there. So we reached out to YLNI and just to have some conversations about Fort Wayne, right? Because that sort of represents a big part of the demographic that is likely to come and frequent some of the places that we want to do here. So I want to thank them for their valuable input. And Arts United, we have Zach Benedict from MKM, and I met Zach probably 5 years ago speaking at a conference where I'd never been to Fort Wayne at that point, but I said if we ever do a deal in Fort Wayne. We're using him because philosophically he understands historic architecture, understands how neighborhoods work. So it's an honor to work with you. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. I was talking to Sharon right before this. Sharon Feisman said this is going to be a lot of fun and it's going to be hard. But that's what makes it so rewarding. So thank you for inviting us to Fort Wayne, and we look forward to producing an amazing product. Thank you.
Thank all of you. That completes the formal press conference for today.